Hi everybody, Ben Choi here, or Space Meat, with another video on how to make foam armor. So, today's video, we're in the stage of plastidipping now that we're done with the assembly and sealing of the seams. So, Plastidip is right over here, is a liquid rubber that you can find in like most stores, hardware stores like Ace, Home Depot, Lowe's. And we basically put it on the armor here to help seal all the pores, smooth it over, and also gives a bit of strength and allows you to finally coat it with primer and all of that. So for this phase you're going to need a lot of protective gear. You definitely want a respirator. You're going to want gloves because you don't want it on your skin. You can actually pick it off, but it's just kind of real pain. And then you'll probably just want some eye protection in case you get splashed. So because I'm going to be wearing protection most of the time for this video, I'm just going to get through everything right now while you can still hear me before I'm horribly muffled. So let me see here. Basically, Plastidip is right over here. Now you can get it in the spray and dip variety. Now I prefer using dip because you can put multiple layers on there. You can actually go much more smoothly, because I find that when I use the Plastidip spray, it tends to leave like kind of a modded pattern on there, and also because you're kind of spraying everywhere, I feel that this is more wasteful than this, so you're going to get more bang per buck for this. Let me see here. What else? You'll also want, if you're going to do the brush, you'll want this industrial maintenance coating thinner. Basically, because the Plastidip is a solvent, you can add additional solvent to help thin it out. They actually do sell a specialized Plastidip solvent, but we're about 5 days out from Comic-Con right now, and I can never find it in stores. So, and they say that you could also use xylene or equivalent to also dilute the Plastidip, which is, you know, apparently this. So this works in a pinch. You'll obviously want a mixing cup and foam brushes. I like to use these large wide ones because it makes it easier. You get a lot more surface area, you can cover it quickly. And you want a stirring stick of some form. I just use chopsticks, cheap and plentiful. And finally, you'll want some tin foil here. And the reason you want tin foil is because I use it to basically seal the can between, you know, coatings and when I'm not using it. The thing about Plastidip, because it's in a solvent, the thing is constantly evaporating. And if you leave it out long enough, it's going to thicken up on you. So you want to reduce that as much as possible. Because, you know, a fresh can of Plastidip is nice and smooth and soft, but the longer you have it out, the longer you use it, you know, it's going to harden, consistency is going to get thicker, and this will help mitigate some of that. So I recommend, you know, making a nice tin foil hat for your Plastidip. So I guess another interesting property about Plastidip I should tell you about is, because it is just kind of immersed in solvent, if you apply multiple layers, unlike, you know, paint where you just get layer after layer after layer after layer, each successive layer of Plastidip, because the solvent will basically dissolve the Plastidip that's already there, and the two will just merge together. So the more Plastidip you get, or the more layers you put on there, they actually just merge into one thick layer of Plastidip. So if you put enough on there, you get a nice strong rubber layer that basically helps keep this whole thing together and from tearing apart. So that's another reason why I like Plastidip so much. And of course, when you're using the dip, you can lay it on pretty thick and have good control over its location compared to the spray over here. Alright, so I guess without further ado here, I'm going to get my safety gear on, and I'm going to, I guess, start dipping. Now, let me see here. Let's get the glasses on. Now the first layer is going to be very quick, because when you first put Plastidip on this thing, it has to soak into the foam, and it's going to look kind of, what's it called? You'll still see the texture of the foam, but after the Plastidip is soaked into the foam, any succeeding layer after that would be built on top of it, and it gets pretty thick and pretty smooth pretty quickly. So, you know, you can be pretty fast on the first one. Also, I guess I should note, as you can see, I'm wearing protective gear and all of that. You may want to wear a shirt that you find sacrificial, because this is a splash zone. Let me see here. And, oh yeah, of course, being a well-ventilated area, that's why I'm out here today, because this stuff will stink up everything you're around, and you will be smelling Plastidip and solvent for like a day or two. Gotta love the small Asian head. Alright, so, first things first. Plastidip. Alright, so now usually if you've had Plastidip for some time, it's going to settle. So you'll want to mix it up first before you do anything so you get a nice even spread. This can is actually relatively fresh, so it's actually a pretty good consistency. I could actually probably apply it directly onto here, but since, you know, this is the first layer, I can keep it relatively thin, so I'm just going to pour a decent amount. There we go. Let's get that back on there. Yeah, you want to keep this, you know, as covered as much as possible, because like I said, it's constantly evaporating. You'll find that in the course of just while painting, the amount of Plastidip you have here will thicken up as it evaporates, even the amount on your brush. So you need to be careful of that. Of course, you can always, there we go, add more solvent to balance that out. Now, I can't tell you the exact amount to add, just because, you know, the properties of the Plastidip change over time, because once you crack it open, you know, the concentration of it is going to change just as the solvent starts evaporating. So it's kind of one of those you mix to taste. So right now it's kind of gooey, you know, if it can really thicken up and then it's really slow. So you want it where you add, you know, a decent amount. There we go. And you can stir. You'll know it's good. You just kind of have to do it by feel, really. But you'll know it's good when you know it has a nice even coat over the cup. So I think this is a good one. You don't always be afraid to add more of the Plastidip or more of the solvent. Either way, it's going to work. Alright, so let's go with the first layer. This is going to be simple. There you go. Now you want to be careful. You don't want it to spread out, or I mean, you don't want it like what's it called, trails as it drips, and you don't want it to bunch up or flow into a corner somewhere, because then you'll have a large, thick hunk of Plastidip that you'll have to try to dissolve or move or dislodge. It's best right now, while it's still liquidy, that you're able to brush. So I'm just going to do that right now. This way you can keep it nice and even, get in the nooks and crannies. Okay. So you can go relatively fast, actually. So this is why you want the large brush, so you can cover a large amount of surface area really quickly, because I used to use those little penny brushes. Now, as you go over time, this is going to soak in the solvent and it's going to feel heavy. In fact, if you squeeze it a little, you see like the Plastidip comes out. So at some point, you're going to have to know when to change, because it's just, this stuff has soaked up way too much Plastidip and it's way too heavy. Just, and I guess just figure it out. It's kind of a play it by ear thing. Okay. Now, like I said, because, you know, each succeeding layer of Plastidip just adds on to the other, you know, if you're doing multiple layers of Plastidip, you don't actually have to let it set or dry over time, except for the first layer. You just want it to soak in. But thankfully, it's only like a few hours. Or actually not even a few hours, a few minutes, you know. Once I get to the other end of here, I can actually probably add more to this end for the second layer. But it's going to take, you know, somewhere between, I guess, 3 and 4 layers of this Plastidip before it's a nice, smooth consistency that you like. But I guess that's more of a personal taste thing. I just want to, you know, cover up the texture of the foam, and I want it relatively thick, so this way it can withstand any kind of tearing and stuff like that. And also, you don't want to do this in direct sunlight or heat, because the solvent will evaporate more quickly. and then you'll have less time to work and apply this stuff to the piece. So you want to do it when in a relatively cool environment, or wait until after the sun sets, like right now. So that is probably some of the best times to do it, outdoors at night. Okay, and there you go. We have the first layer complete. So I'm just going to check all the nooks and crannies, make sure nothing didn't flow in there. Just spread it out. Make sure everything's smooth and consistent. Okay. Watch, the edges, because things tend to flow over the edges. There we go. And that's going to set. So I'm going to leave that for a little bit, but here is another one I've already gotten one layer on. So now, you can just let that set for a bit. Just move to the other layer. Like, you see right here, this is the first layer. It looks kind of matte. It still has the foam texture, but as I add more and more, it's going to become smooth and much shinier, see, than this end, because this is already the second layer. By the time I get to the third, it's going to be very, very smooth. So I'm just going to keep going. I'm just going to do a second layer on here. Nice long strokes to spread it out. So you can see how much thicker the second layer appears to here when it doesn't have to soak in anymore. Now it's sitting on top of all of this foam, so I can just brush on many, many layers of the Plastidip until it hits the thickness and smoothness that I like. So, there we go. So, oops. Oh, I touched it. Yeah. So, there you go. That is Plastidip. So, a few more layers. Special note, as you can see, the texture like this is very rubbery, so a bunch of layers of Plastidip like this is also very good for the rubber pieces, like the inner thighs that are going to show up here, or the piece on the chest plate. Here, let me grab it. There we go. Or this right here. This area is really just plain Plastidip. That's why I have this as one piece. I'm going to Plastidip this whole thing. When I'm done, I'm going to tape all this off, just leave it, covered up, and then put the paint over here so that this appears like this, so it gives a good rubbery texture for that hunk. Put that here so I don't lose it over the balcony. Okay, so I think that pretty much covers Plastidip. Next time around, we're probably going to get into painting. So thanks for watching. Of course, if you have any questions, you can leave them in the comments or try to contact me through my Facebook page. I'll put the link to that. So thank you again, and until next time.